Welcome to datascience.show, the podcast where data science meets executive leadership. We talk with top AI and analytics thought leaders about turning data into real business impact. If you're a C-level leader or data expert shaping the future, you're in the right place.
I'm your host, Mirko Peters. We explore how data science and AI drive real business impact, straight from the leaders making it happen. Today, causal confidence, turning correlation into executive decisions. Quick promise for this episode. You'll get a concise, practical playbook for when to run experiments, when observational causal methods are acceptable, and how to hardwire causal questions into decision gates so your organization scales what truly works, not just what predicts. Imagine a senior head of experimentation at a large digital retailer, responsible for site conversion, pricing, and marketing lift across 30 countries. That's our hypothetical guest profile today, and the decisions they face are the kinds that either protect margin or burn it.
Thanks, Mirko. In that role, I'd own experimentation strategy, analytics strategy, and the escalation path to the executive committee. My daily focus is converting analytical signals into accountable interventions, and then proving they deliver the promised financial returns.
My career arc: product analytics to experimentation platform lead to enterprise head of experimentation. Along the way, I learned three things. Data can lie when you treat correlation as causation. Experiments are the gold standard, but not always practical. And leaders need clear decision rules, or trust erodes fast.
Let's start with basics that matter to the balance sheet. What's the core difference between a predictive signal and a causal decision lever?
A predictive signal forecasts an outcome given the world you observed. A causal lever is an action you take that changes that outcome. Put simply, prediction tells you who is likely to churn. Causation tells you what action will reduce churn. Confusing the two is how companies scale ineffective, sometimes harmful programs.
Good. Now, leadership needs a playbook. When should a leader insist on a randomized controlled trial, an RCT, versus accepting an observational causal estimate, like an instrumental variable or synthetic control? Rule of thumb: use an RCT when the decision is reversible but high impact, and you can randomize without unacceptable operational cost. Examples: new sign-up flows, pricing A/B where rollback is simple, or marketing campaigns with clear audience splits. Use robust observational methods when randomization is infeasible, too slow, or unethical. For instance, regulatory changes, major supply chain reconfigurations, or policy-level pricing.
Trade-offs. RCTs deliver the cleanest causal answer but can be slower, require sample size and instrumentation, and sometimes clash with product cadence. Observational approaches are faster and cheaper, but rely on assumptions and stronger domain validation. How do you decide the tolerance for uncertainty?
You map decisions to three axes: impact, reversibility, and speed. High-impact, irreversible decisions require high causal certainty. Lean RCT. Low-impact, reversible moves can begin with observational triangulation plus small pilots. And when speed matters, run short randomized pilots where possible and combine with quasi-experimental checks to triangulate quickly. Let's walk through concrete use cases leaders will recognize. Marketing lift is classic. Should you expand an ad channel because a model predicts conversion? What's the safe approach?
Start with a targeted RCT on a representative segment. Measure incremental conversions and CPA. If you can't randomize across channels, use difference in differences or synthetic control with pre-treatment balance checks and sensitivity analyses. Crucially, tie the experiment to finance. Forecast lift in revenue terms and the break-even CPL before scaling.
Dynamic pricing is trickier. Price changes affect competitors, long-term lifetime value, and customer perceptions. You rarely get a clean short-term signal. How do leaders manage that?
Use stratified experiments by cohort and geography where possible, and always measure downstream LTV, not just immediate conversion. Complement RCTs with structural models and instrument variables that account for demand shocks, and require rollback gates. If a pricing test underperforms on margin or retention at pre-specified thresholds, pause and reevaluate. Governance beats optimism here.
Supply chain interventions are another example. You can't randomize inventory allocation easily. Observational methods and simulations often carry the day.
Exactly. Use causal inference with strong controls, synthetic controls across similar regions, instrumental variables from exogenous shocks, and simulation to test scenarios. But validate with small operational pilots where possible. The pattern is always quick pilot, observational triangulation, then phased rollout with decision gates.
That pattern, pilot, triangulate, rollout, is the operational spine. Let's talk leadership and ownership. Who owns the causal question, and what decision rights matter?
Causal questions should be owned jointly by product or operations, who define interventions, analytics and experimentation teams, who design and validate, and finance, who signs off on ROI assumptions. Executive sponsorship is essential to resolve trade-offs and enforce decision gates. Without clear ownership, experiments never translate cleanly into scaled interventions.
Measurement. What do you require before a test is deemed successful and scaled?
Require pre-specified primary intervention KPIs, power calculations, and an analysis plan before you run a test. Tie the KPI to a financial metric, revenue lift, margin impact, or cost per action, and include guardrail metrics like retention, NPS, or fraud. And always include an explicit rollback clause in the decision gate.
Culture and governance, experimentation can be seen as slow. How do leaders balance speed with the need for causal certainty so the organization doesn't perceive experiments as blockers?
Create fast lanes for low-risk experiments with lighter governance and strict lanes for strategic, high-impact moves. Pair product teams with embedded analysts to reduce friction. Publish experiment results and failures openly so the organization learns. Transparency builds trust faster than authority. And make governance predictable. Clear thresholds for when full RCTs are required and when observational methods suffice.
Looking ahead, what capabilities should leaders invest in over the next 12 to 24 months to strengthen causal confidence?
3 priorities. First, invest in instrumentation and outcome tracking. If you can't measure outcomes reliably, causal methods are useless. Second, build experimentation platforms that support both randomized and quasi-experimental designs. Third, upskill product and analytics leaders in causal reasoning. Not everyone needs a PhD, but leaders must understand assumptions and failure modes.
Durable risks. Automation of causal pipelines sounds tempting, but there's risk of overfitting business rules and automating weak assumptions. How do you prevent that? Guardrails. Automated pipelines must include monitoring for concept drift, continuous validation against holdout experiments, and explicit human review for large-scale rollouts. Never let an automated signal bypass a governance gate for high-impact interventions.
Time for 2 practical, executive-level takeaways.
First, prioritize causal questions, not models. Ask, what decision will change if this is true? If you can't tie a model to an intervention and a KPI, deprioritize it. Second, require pre-specified intervention KPIs and analysis plans before scaling. That single policy cuts false positives, reduces rollouts of harmful programs, and protects trust between data teams and stakeholders. That's governance that actually scales value.
Final reflection. Leaders who convert correlation into causal confidence protect margin, accelerate learning, and reduce costly reversals. Structure the experiments, align finance and product, and enforce decision gates, and you'll move from models to measurable value. That's the difference between models and value. If you found this episode valuable, subscribe and share it with your network. And let's connect on LinkedIn. I'm Mirko Peters. We'll be back with more conversations on how data science and AI create real business impact. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to datascience.show. If you found value in this episode, subscribe, share it with your network, and join us next time as we explore how data science drives smarter decisions and better business outcomes.